Yeah. But no, I appreciate everything that you said. I always firmly believe that you should treat everybody, you
Right from the start, you can feel the tone this judge sets. Calm, respectful, and human. She isn't just focused on rulings and punishments, she's focused on dignity. Think about it. For many people, stepping into court is one of the most stressful experiences of their lives. And here's a judge openly saying, let's lower the temperature, let's not make this harder than it already is. That's rare. Too often, courtrooms can feel cold and intimidating, but here, the emphasis is on humanity. Do you think more judges should approach the bench with this mindset? Drop your thoughts below.
like human beings. And I think when you do that, it sort of brings the temperature down a little bit in the courtroom because everybody is stressed in court. Sometimes for people, it's their first time being in court. Don't be stressed. Yeah. For other people, it's they've been to court before, but maybe they had a bad experience with it. And then, of course, we have Deputy Lord, Deputy Mejia. So I want to keep the temperature right here and not let it simmer. Yeah. Yeah. But I enjoy everything that you all are doing because when you were saying I help the community, but you guys do too. Yes. And Haven for Hope, you're seeing people who are in distress. Maybe they have mental health issues, but they don't have places to go. And that's very traumatic. And so I would have clients who, didn't have a home to go to. Some of them were put out of their homes, some because there are other issues that were going on with them. But then I had some who there really were no issues going on with them. It's just their home environment wasn't a good environment for them. And I don't think people realize, and I hope society realized that not having a place to stay and then even going to Haven for Hope, even though it's to help somebody, that's still traumatic for that person. Because if you think about it, if I were to take myself and say, okay, Stephanie, you don't have a place to stay and you're going to come to this completely different place, you don't know anybody, and you're going to be surrounded by different people, I would just say, oh my gosh, okay, let me see. It would be stressful because I was out of my home for a year and 6 months because there was a flood. And, I had a place to go, a hotel to go to, but that still, and the people at the hotel were so nice, they were great, but that still was stressful. Yeah. Because you're not around your own things and you can't go and work in a garden because you're in a hotel. Yeah. So I do really appreciate everything that you all do at Haven. I have a question. Sure. Well, growing up, I was always taught that your job on the planet is to, one, be kind, and two, to help others, however that may be. It's don't make somebody else's life more stressful. That's what I was always taught. Now, I always knew I wanted to be an attorney from early on because my grandmother would babysit me and we would watch Perry Mason together. So before I even started school, I was watching Perry Mason and I was just like, I want to do what Perry and Della are doing. I want to be that attorney who has a secretary who has a secretary and they have their own private investigator. Of course, when I became an attorney, I quickly realized that no, you're your own secretary, you're your own private investigator. But after doing that and seeing everything, it's easy to get burned out because people don't tell you when you're in law school, if you want to practice criminal law, which is my passion, that you're dealing with major issues and everybody comes to you with a lot of problems and you're trying to solve their problems. And criminal law probably is one of the few professions that I know of where if you have a client who has a problem, it's your fault. You never see anyone go to the doctor, and if they have an injury, they don't go to the doctor and say, it's your fault I have this injury. But my time being a defense attorney, people would say, Stephanie Boyd, this is your fault. I don't have my children back. It's your fault. I'm not out of jail. My case hasn't been dismissed. It's your fault. So I did that for well over 20 years. And then I ended up going to the prosecutor's office, and I was placed in family violence, and I was the first chair family violence prosecutor. And I really enjoyed that. But then I said, I'm going to run for office. Let me see what I can do, because you're constantly, for me, I don't want to stay in one place forever. I'm always like, okay, what can I do that can better help our community? And of course, I pray over everything. And then my mom and I will talk about it, and my family and I will talk about it. And so I said, okay, I'll run for office. And so then I ran for office. And I always said, if ever I were in this position, I would do things differently, because sometimes as a defense attorney or as a prosecutor, you put so much work into coming up with an argument for the court. And you say, this is a great argument. My client's going to get probation, or, and then a judge would come back and they would make a decision in 5 minutes. You're like, I spent 2 days on that and I get a decision in 5 minutes. So I always said that I wanted people to really realize that I'm hearing everything that they're saying and internalizing everything. And when people are placed on probation, my thing is everybody wants you to be successful. State wants you to be successful, otherwise they wouldn't have offered it. Defense wants you to be successful. I want you to be successful. And it's getting people to understand that that is very hard, because sometimes I'll have defendants come in and maybe they tested positive for marijuana. And I try to get them in here so that probation can talk to them so we can get them back on the right path. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. And I don't think people realize sometimes in this court, we're dealing with sort of children because they're 18.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one of the cases we had here. I want to say he was about 18, and his mother put him out of the house. And he was doing well on probation.
This is where the stakes get real. An 18-year-old on probation, barely an adult, suddenly kicked out of his home because his mother's boyfriend didn't want him around. Now here's the shocking part. The mum confirmed it.
No rule breaking, no disrespect, just rejection.
Imagine the emotional weight of being abandoned like that while you're trying to rebuild your life.
Luckily, a relative stepped in, but many aren't that fortunate.
It raises a hard question. How much responsibility should family bear when the justice system is trying to give someone a second chance? Would you have done what the relative did, or left the system to handle it?
And then he dropped off the radar. So we got him in here, and he came before me and he said, oh yeah, my mom put me out of my house because her boyfriend doesn't like me. I'm like, there has to be more, right? So the mom came in and she said, my boyfriend doesn't like him. And I said, well, is he not following the rules? Is he being disrespectful? No. But thank goodness he had a relative who was in the military who said, I'll take him. He can live with me. And so he successfully completed it. So that's where we are.
We're getting so many dates I think right now.
Oh, wow.
That is one of those, either they're putting them out or sexual orientation or just, difference in beliefs, and their babies come to us, and we have a build program now.
Mhm.
It's off campus and North campus. North campus is for if you're their county resident, you have priority. South campus is you don't have to be a resident, but it's only for 18 to 24-year-olds. And the programming with space management,
Mhm.
your own apartment, all the case management are there. So they have, that program. It's been about 2 years now that we've been going strong with that program. So I'm glad we have that. We haven't had all the time.
Oh, I'm glad for that too.
Yes, ma'am. Because they still don't know what they're doing, and then they've been homeless for a little while, and they get brought in by SAPD,
Mhm.
or just they find their way through the teen challenge, or the young adult other sent the drop-in shelter they
Mhm.
have. So we're getting them, but we have resources now. So for those like those.
Yeah, and I always tell people it is so hard when you're being homeless and you're living homeless,
Yes.
because I always think about this, and this is why when I see people come before me, I try to figure out, okay, what is their life? What is going on in their life? And sometimes when I'm downtown, you'll see a homeless person, and then I'll start thinking, okay, Where do they stay at night? How are they protected at night? Because I'll see women who are walking, and then if it's cold, I'm like, okay, how they're getting a blanket, where they're getting their food, like what is happening. And I would see them. And of course, I would see them. I'm like, hey, this is the place you can go. You should really go there because right now, San Antonio, it's 100 degrees before it's 8 a.m. and it's 100 degrees with humidity. So it's really, really hot. And I think people are getting heat strokes and all of this. And I'm like, do they have any water? So,
But that's
yeah.
and also exacerbated by drug use. And that's
Mhm.
really our majority of our clientele is, drug users.
Mhm.
Also unaddressed mental health. So the combination of
Mhm.
both is just a bad for people.
Oh, it is. I used to do part of my practice, some of it was CPS cases because judges would appoint me because there were criminal cases involved as well. And I don't think people realize that those children who are over there, when they age out of the system, they really don't have a safety net. And so there was this organization I was a board member of. It was called Youth Transitioning into Adulthood. And it was to help children aging out of the foster care because nobody ever thinks about this. When they graduate from high school, who's cheering them as they walk across the stage? Who's paying for them to have invitations, and who do they send invitations to? Who is buying their class ring? So we would show up to their graduations to try to make it exciting for them. And then people never think children who are in the foster care system, and they age out, they get free college, right? But the key is getting them to want to go. And then you tell them, hey, just take this one course because then it could last for this amount of time. But when you think about that, what do they do when it's spring break?
Where they go.
Yes, where do they go? And so those are issues that really need to address that nobody's addressing because a lot of times I would talk to people in the community, they're like, oh my gosh, free college, that's great. And then I would say, but think about it, clothes. Where are they going spring break? Where are they going for Christmas break? Because some campuses shut down. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
My problem with spring break was, okay, I'm going to take the bus to get home, and I would get bus fare, take the bus to get home. But other people, they don't have a home to go to, and you don't want them going back to the situation that brought them to be in care of the state. So it's difficult.
CPS workers bring them to Haven.
Mhm.
As soon as they're 18, they're at
Mhm.
Haven. And
This courtroom conversation goes far beyond sentencing. It's about survival, second chances, and society's blind spots. From probation struggles to homelessness, and even the forgotten kids aging out of foster care, Judge Boyd reminds us that justice doesn't end with a ruling. It's about what happens next, when the cameras are off and the courtroom doors close. These stories reveal how fragile stability can be and how much compassion matters in the legal system. If you found this case as eye-opening as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.